everybody, this is Charlize the Nocti Girl. I have the pleasure of visiting the famous Leica ambassador and fine art photographer Milan Swolves here in Antwerp, Belgium.
Hi Charlize, I'm so happy that you are here in my hometown Antwerp, and I'm happy that you guys could have a look behind the scenes. We just finished our great shoot with our model Caroline, and I'll just give you a glimpse today about how I work, the equipment, and just to give you guys behind the scenes of a typical shoot.
I've always enjoyed working on other photographers' sets. It allows me to observe what equipment they use, how they approach different lighting situations, and how they work with their models and subjects. It was fascinating observing Milan shoot because he not only knows exactly what he's doing, why he chooses certain lenses and cameras over others, he's also a polyglot. He's speaking French and Flemish with our model Caroline, English to us, German on the phone, and who knows what other languages he also speaks. But this makes sense though, since photography is a type of language and he's so fluent in so many of them, and that's probably why he's good at communicating his vision through his images. Anyway, I absolutely love Milan's classic Hollywood glamour style portraits. Maybe it's because I've got a touch of an old soul too, but that soft, glowy aesthetic, the meticulous attention to detail, and those richly ornate, textured fabrics, everything just amplifies the sheer femininity of the models he captures.
So the biggest decision always when I go for a shoot is what equipment shall I bring, what should I focus on, and what style do I want to achieve. Because the lenses and the camera choice often have an impact on the images and how the final images will look. So today we are in the old town of Antwerp, in the middle of the center. We have this nice apartment where we did the shoot today with Caroline. I brought today the M11 monochrome because I wanted really to focus on black and white contrasts and using on this very modern camera, using mostly old lenses. As you know, I have quite a few of the vintage lenses in my portfolio because they fit my style, and combined with the monochrome sensor, they gave this combination of old and new technology together, which brings the old Hollywood style back, which I really adore. So today I brought one of the Noctiluxes, the 50 f1 version 4. It's probably one of my favorite Noctiluxes to use on the monochrome camera. We can have lots of small depth of field. We can have this amazing bokeh, and the monochrome sensor really works well with the old Noctilux because the old Noctilux has a kind of a bluish tone, and this creates amazing black and white images. I wanted to start today, and now it's already dark as you can see because we just finished the shoot, but we started the shoot on the balcony. We took some typical shots that I always do through the window. And then we had this marvelous idea because the outside of the building is also very beautiful, very authentic. So I kept the model on the balcony, went down, and I took some outside shots from the other side of the street. The streets in Antwerp Center are quite narrow, so I didn't need a very long tele lens. I just used the 75 Noctilux just to capture the whole frame, the model coming from the window. And why I use the 75, it's a heavy lens, but it's really, it's a hell of a lens. It balances perfectly the sharpness and the unsharpness. It's a very modern lens. It's the most modern lens that I brought today because all the other lenses are a little bit of the vintage style, but the 75 is a lens that I always will take because it creates just magic sharp portraits. And I have still a very special brown leather pouch here. And as you know, as many of me know, they call me sometimes the Mr. Tambar or whatever, but I could not leave home without this lens. This is the original screw mount, so we have a screw mount adapter from screw to M mount for bayonet. This is the original with the soft focus filter on it. So I always use the filter, but as you know, I like to shoot most lenses quite wide open, but the Tambar I always stop down a little bit to 3.2 to 3.4. Why? Because of course, the monochrome, M11 monochrome can go very high in ISO, but we used today also an Okta soft box. Why? Because I wanted to get some more contrast in the photos. And the tan bar, the softness of the tan bar stopped down in combination with the strobe creates a very natural feel, a very soft light. I asked my wonderful assistant Kevin to really direct the light, not to have it direct flash, but really use it as a soft bounce feather light, so that we can really have this wonderful glamour-like shots. So not like in fashion photography where you often had this harsh light. I really wanted to use a soft light. And this is what I really like about the new cameras with old lenses. You can stop them down, you can still have the glow, but you can also raise your ISO higher, that you can use combination of natural light with some fill light of the strobes. And that's always my dream combination, because often people ask me, do I use often strobes or flash? And yes, I do use them, but I want always my images to have a most natural light feeling. But of course, not every condition has just natural light. You need always some modifiers or just a little bit of fill flash just to keep the perfect look, because we don't want, if I use shadows, I use them in a way that they are used in a good way, but we don't want the shadow to come on a position that it creates like, you know, wrong eyes, or you don't see the eyes. You want always the eyes to pop. So that's why I like to use panels, or I like to use strobes, or a little bit of fill light, just to give the perfect light on the model. It's always important to do this from the beginning. I often fiddle with the lights, or have the assistants fiddle with the lights, so that it's always the great light to start with. I rather do the things in post, but keep them to a minimum. And also, why is a great way why I use the tan bar, and some people say it's too soft. Yeah, that's why you need to close it down a little bit, but it will keep me a lot of work in post-production, because what we as photographers sometimes see, oh, this is soft, it's not good, we want ultra sharpness, and we all love the APO lenses. Thank you, Peter Carber, for those. But sometimes we need something softer, and often the models also prefer that softer look, the softness of some of the lenses. So I often show also the model during the work, sometimes by a monitor, or just by connecting the Leica app, or just showing the photo from the camera. And then you can often see that they like the softness in those images, and they really prefer those over sometimes the harsh sharpness that we often seek, and why we often say that some lenses are better than others because of the ultra sharpness. But in the end, it's to make people feel, my goal is to make people beautiful, to say, wow, this is me, I love myself in that photo. And I think that's important in the way I do my shoots. It's not about clothes, it's not about showing the ultra sharpness, it's to make people feel beautiful and in a natural way. So that's why it's always, for me, the lens selection makes a big, it's a big important for my work, because it's part of the process. And of course, seeing the rich history of Leica, we have the ability to adapt all those vintage and also new lenses on the cameras that we have, on the M cameras. And I especially like to use, if I do my own project as we did today, I can really define my own style. And often what I do as well is to shoot, again, we do some mirror shots. I think that in all of my portfolio, there's a line of mirror shots or through the window shots. And I think that always that there's a consistency in that we can often make to keep you a glimpse of the world. So I like also to prepare things in that way. Not stage it too much, but always let the model do in a playful way how she sees, or how like she's preparing herself, or she's watching herself in the mirror. And also in the outfits that were chosen today, they have all patterns, and I think that's always nice for black and white, that there is some kind of texture that we can use to make a difference. And that's what the monochrome sensor does very well. All those different patterns, those different grayscales, that we can play with them in post. The most difficult part today of the shoot was, of course, getting the light right, because we were switching from, we started when it was still a light, bright autumn light today, but then later it became quite dark easily, so we needed light modifiers. That was the difficult part, to get the soft look. We bounced even to the wall, and the high, as people who know, the European cities have these high ceilings in the apartments, so that worked just out fine. The other difficulty was to get this baby to focus because it's soft. So I didn't bring my EVF for the M11, so you don't get any focus confirmation on this because there's almost no contrast. So sometimes for some certain shoots I was standing out on the couch or I went on a higher position. And then of course you need to rely on the live view. So that was sometimes a difficulty to get the focus to be somewhat sharp. You will see that they will not always be perfectly sharp, but that's not the idea of today. The second most difficult thing is that I want to bring one of the settings that we had, the lingerie that we used as a kind of a voile, like they say in French, and to shoot through it with the 10 bar was a difficult task because I could not even see anything what was in focus, but I still wanted to have even more that mysterious look of looking through something, looking through the cotton. And this was actually achieved. We still need to bring up a little bit more contrast in those images, but I think in the end they looked out very well.
Alrighty, I think you've been knocked up today.
And I'm knocked out.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.